and all the ESPNs. Viacom owns CBS, BET, Comedy Network, Spike TV, 130 other networks. News Corp owns Fox. Time Warner owns CNN. And General Electric owns all the NBCs, including the CNBC, the Financial News Network, owned by a stock company. General Electric also happens to be one of the largest defense contractors in the country. Did you know that? Exactly, and you know what? Lady just pointed out a good point. General Electric also happens to be one of the largest in hydro, wind, and solar power. And you know what else? I got a lot of informed people here. I'm glad you're helping me out. I'll tell you, General Electric, if Obamacare were to go through, they'd also be one of the largest providers of the billing and the claims. Now, what do we the people have to do? We have to inform and educate ourselves who the real enemy is. Obama's a puppet, just like George Bush and Clinton and everybody else was a puppet. Let's go back in history and look at how this country was formed. Why did we have a revolution against England to start with? Does anybody know? A lot of people feel it was due to taxation. Well, in Benjamin Franklin's autobiography, he stated the prime reason for the Revolutionary War was because England would not let us run an honest money supply. He said we would have gladly borne a few taxes on our tea, but we can't allow them to give us money that we have to pay a tax and a debt and an interest to the moment we get it, just like we're doing now, today with the Federal Reserve Bank. We pay them to print our money, Americans. In 1791, the first bank charter was granted. It was a 20-year charter. It went to 1811. In 1811, Thomas Jefferson and James Madison stated, "We will not let the private bankers no longer control our money. Whoever controls the money will ultimately control the country and the politicians." The bankers who had influences in England threatened our founding fathers and said, if you don't give us another 20-year charter, the bankers stated they will have England go to war with us. In 1812, you had the War of 1812. It ended in 1814 with one significant outcome. In 1816, another 20-year charter was granted to the central bankers. Again, the second time in our nation's history, the private bank was in central banker private hands. In 1832, our seventh president, Andrew Jackson, was running for re-election. He stated, and his election motto was Jackson and no bank. You get me back in office and I'll get rid of the private bankers. The bankers knew what was happening, so they started to depress the money. Andrew Jackson went at them and said, I am going to get back the National Bank and put it back in the hands of the American people where it rightfully belongs. The bankers sent an assassin to our seventh president, Andrew Jackson. Both guns misfired, miraculously. He stated to the bankers, I've had men watching you, and you could state this today. In 2009, Andrew Jackson stated to the bankers, I've had men watching you, and they reported back to me that you've been gambling in the breadstuffs of this country. And when you've had profits, you've shared them amongst yourselves. And when you have losses, you spread them amongst the people. The bankers told Andrew Jackson, if you take back the bank, you'll ruin 10,000 families. Andrew Jackson said, that'll be your sin. If I don't take that back the bank, you'll ruin 50,000 families, and that'll be my sin. Andrew Jackson took back the bank, and when he did, he called them a den of thieves and vipers. And he told them, I intend to rout you out, and by the eternal God, I will rout you out, so help me God. When he called the bankers a den of thieves and vipers, he didn't say they were playmates on the schoolyard. He said just that. They're a den of thieves and vipers. They're gypsies. What are gypsies good at? They're good at pickpocketing you. And what are they great at? They're great at distraction. When one guy's pickpocketing you, they got 5 guys distracting you. Just like there are 5 major media companies today who got you involved with American Idol, Dancing with the Stars, football games and baseball games and hockey games and basketball games. It's bread and circus for the people. Keep your mind off of what's important. The important thing is, who are we really fighting today? We're fighting the same people that Benjamin Franklin, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln had his fights with them too. He went to the bankers and stated, I want to get a loan for the Civil War. The bankers said, okay, we'll give you 20% interest. He said, well, the Constitution allows me to print my own money, so he began to print his own money called greenbacks. What happened to Abraham Lincoln? Every president that's gone up against the bankers has either had a war brought up against them in 1811, an assassination attempt with Andrew Jackson, Abraham Lincoln. Research back to John F. Kennedy. What did he reinstate? He reinstated the greenbacks in 1963. Call up some of your coin dealers and your pawn shops, and they might have a United States note. Look at your dollar later. And at the top of it says Federal Reserve note. John F. Kennedy reinstated the United States note at the top of the dollar. We have to push aside the Kool-Aid media that keeps us swimming at the surface. And we must dig deeper into history. Google tonight when you go home the Federal Reserve Act. Just Google it. You'll see it was enacted December 23rd, 1913. In 1913, there were no highways, there were no jetliners. If I was leaving a Christmas break in Florida and you were a senator in California, we were leaving a Christmas break the beginning of December, not December 24th. Google H.R. 1207, the bill to audit the Federal Reserve. It's the greatest legislation in our lifetime, yet not a peep from the Kool-Aid media. Ask yourself why. We've had this tremendous fight throughout the history of this country against central bankers, and not a peep from the media about auditing the Federal Reserve Bank for the first time since 1913. There's 282 co-sponsors in the House, 23 co-sponsors in the Senate. Ask your representative to sponsor the bill. Ask them why they haven't already, like Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
She's a commie.
Or either of the senators that we have failed to co-sponsor this bill.
Thank God that one left. Hopefully you will do better.
I'll leave you on one last note. If you get a chance, 2 movies to Google tonight for your homework. Google America, Freedom to Fascism, and Google Money Masters.